The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, aka the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua.
Welcome everybody to Exit Team Nashua. My name's Jessie and I will be your host this evening. Tonight in the studio we have the one and only Jonathan Gerson. Jonathan's actually my boss.
I'm your guest.
And friend,
and
I would
guest
consider.
Today.
And guest. So thank you for coming. I know you have a very busy schedule, so.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I'm excited because I've known you for a while, but I've never really...
I remember the first time we met.
Yeah.
Very different circumstances.
Do. Yeah. I don't know if I remember the first time, but I got the gist of...
Different time.
Yeah, I was... Before I was well. You were well.
Somewhat.
On the way.
On the way.
On the way.
Yeah.
So, but I still haven't really learned about you, you know. So.
What would you like to know?
So, where did you grow up? Where are you from?
So I'm a transplant from Massachusetts, North Shore of Boston. I'm one of the people that came from a great family, a mother and father that were married for 40 years. My mom did actually pass away a couple of years ago. May she rest in peace. She is why I'm sober. There's no doubt about it. I'll get into that a little bit more, but I came from a great family. There's no addiction in my family. There's no real mental illness in my family. Mm-hmm. It starts with me. It's got to start somewhere. So it started with me. Okay. But I'm not, a product of a broken home or trauma. Okay. Addiction doesn't discriminate, as you know.
So, what was it like for you growing up? Like, did you feel out of place? Like, did you get bullied? Like, tell us a little bit about what led you think to picking up?
So I wouldn't say that. So a lot of people, many of us like to focus on that, where it came from. I don't know. I was a small kid.
Okay.
I was the last kid picked for the, kickball team, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I tried to do a lot of things to prove myself, show no fear, impress people. Mm-hmm. But there were a lot of other small kids that didn't end up being a heroin addict and cocaine addict. Yeah. You know what I mean? My brother has his own difficulties. He did not become a heroin addict or cocaine addict or alcoholic. I did. Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily think that's the cause. Okay. I am what I am. You know?
Yeah.
So
tell us, what it was like for you. What led you to picking up? You were in high school, you drank, what did it look like?
It looked pretty typical for a very short amount of time. I remember my first drink, me and a bunch of friends mixed a bunch of different liquors from a friend's parents' liquor cabinet, brown liquors, clear liquors, whatever. We put them in Poland Spring bottles. And I remember taking the first sip. And I remember gagging and spitting most of it up. I got a little bit of it down, and I loved it. Mm. I could feel it already. I could feel it within seconds. Mm-hmm. So I got the rest of that Poland Spring bottle down. Mm. I remember that night in and out of a blackout. I remember being on a hardwood floor and pressing my cheek down on the hardwood floor because I was so sick, and the coldness from the hardwood floor made me feel a little bit better, a little less sick. The room stopped spinning a little bit. And I remember actually moving cheek to cheek because the cold floor felt really good. So that's how sick I got my first night.
Yeah.
And I then remember my mother and father having to come pick me up. I remember they were discussing in the front seat whether they should bring me to the hospital or not. This is how concerned they were. This was the first time.
So did your friend's parents catch you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I got caught doing everything. I got caught doing everything. I was the kid that parents were like, you can't hang out with.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
So yeah, we all got caught, and I remember my parents having a fight that night. My dad was like, "You're overreacting. Doesn't need the hospital." My mother's scared, and I mean, that was just the beginning, and I caused them so much pain.
So you didn't go to the hospital?
I did not.
Okay.
I woke up with a horrible hangover. Finally, I got in touch with the people I was with, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it started to take like an element of like amusement. You know what I mean? We were laughing about certain things, and even though it was as if I didn't even remember how sick I was when I woke up.
Yeah.
And so then we proceeded to try to figure out how to, make it work next time. Maybe not, get as drunk and not get in as much trouble. So we planned to get a 30-pack. One of our friend's brothers was old enough.
How old were you at this time?
12.
12.
So, yeah.
Wow, that's
isn't that
young.
isn't that a normal age? No.
I mean, I think that's young, but yeah, I hear that quite often.
So we're planning to get this 30-pack and put it in the woods, and we get that done, and then like throughout the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there's 4 of us, and I'm trying to manipulate and lie my way into being one of the guys that got 8, because 2 of us are going to get 8, 2 of us are going to get 7. Doesn't split evenly. I've never even had a beer. I can't. And I told you I was small too. I was like the little kid, and here I am fighting and lying and manipulating to get 8 when I couldn't even drink 8.
Right.
But this is how my drinking and drugging started.
Wow.
So
right away.
Alcoholic.
That's interesting.
Alcoholic right away. Alcohol was hard to get, so we smoked a lot of weed. I couldn't do anything without smoking first. I couldn't go play pool. Couldn't go to a movie.
So did the obsession set in right away? Like, was it like, I always want to do this?
Immediately.
Wow.
And I want more, and I want higher powered, substances. So it wasn't long before I was trying acid, I was trying mushrooms, I was freebasing cocaine. And it really wasn't even long after that I shot heroin for the first time.
So, okay, but you were 12 a minute ago, so.
What do you want you want the age?
Yeah, I mean,
IV?
No, I mean, like you said, like it wasn't long.
So, like my teenage years, I was in the legal system at 14.
Wow.
I went to my first treatment center when I was 13. When I was 13, the school brought my family in because I had been caught several times, like either high or had alcohol in my bag. So they recommended that I go to treatment. So I went to a place called Beach Hill, which was in New Hampshire. If I'm not mistaken, it is where Phoenix House, Dublin is now.
Okay.
It used to be called Beach Hill, and they had an adolescent program, and I went there for my first time when I was 13. And some of the stuff that they talked about made sense to me.
Yeah.
I knew what I was doing was not okay, and I knew I was doing it a little bit harder and more than my peers.
Yeah.
I knew that it was already holding a larger importance in my life. However, I wasn't going to give it up.
Right.
I was just going to figure out
how to make it work.
So that's what I did for the next, 20 years or something.
Right. Tried to figure out how to make it work.
Tried to figure it out.
Yeah.
Really hard to do once it comes to IV, cocaine, and heroin use. Yeah.
So, I mean, what did it look like? Did you go to college, play sports? Tell us a little bit about that.
I had a knack for, getting into a lot of trouble. Incarcerated as a child, incarcerated as an adult, in and out of treatment centers. Massachusetts has all those lovely section laws, 12, 35, having that happen. But making these firm resolutions, to get my life together, and I would put together periods of abstinence. The first time I really gave this an earnest shot, I was 18, and I put just about a year together, and I lit my life to the ground. I lit my life to the ground again, after a year. But I had a way of, getting things together and things like you said, like, did I go to school? Did I get jobs? Yes. Like I would put some semblance of a life together so I could continue living this lie like everything's okay.
Right.
And really not do anything about the inside.
Right.
I was still, every time I put the drink and the drug down, I was the same self-centered, excuse my language, but I was a scumbag.
Yeah.
I was a scumbag. All I thought about was myself.
Right.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. Fast forward. I mean, this time I was left no other options but really taking a look at the inside and humbling myself, laying my ego aside, having some faith in something else than myself. I'm not the same person I used to be. Hands down. If I'm the same person I used to be, I'm gonna drink or drug again.
Right.
Period.
Right.
And it's not about what everything looks like on the outside. It's not about what I do for work, where I work, how much money I have, what I drive, who my girlfriend is. Like, it's not. It can't be about any of those other things.
Right.
Those things will come, but it can't be about that. Life can't be about that. My principles changed. My perceptions of life have changed.
So that's amazing. But I want to hear a little bit more. So you said incarcerated as a child.
Yep.
So.
So when you're put on probation, as anytime you're put on probation, you have conditions that you have to meet, and I was never able to meet the conditions that they set forth for me. When I was, 14 or 15, they sent me to one of those adolescent
like juvenile detention?
No, that was after.
Okay.
They sent me to one of those adolescent treatment centers. I don't know if you're familiar with Long Island and Quincy. It used to be a thing. It's no longer a thing.
Okay, yeah.
They had a bunch of programs out there. They had a shelter out there. It was this, all state funded programs. And I went out there as, I was 14 or 15. And they used to bring us to meetings in the evening. And one time when they brought us to a meeting, there were like 3 or 4 of us. We stopped to get gas. And there were like 3 or 4 of us. And we just all looked at each other. We're like, let's get out of here. And just like that. Now I'm this kid from Marblehead. I think we were in Roxbury at the time. And I'm out on the streets with these 4 kids, like 14, 15 years old. There was no thought. There was no, like, let's play this through. And again, and I was a kid. I was trying to prove myself, like I said, all the time. And, so I'm running around for a few days until I realized, what the hell am I going to do? So I went back to my parents' house, right? And called the probation officer, told him what happened. He said, oh, okay, well, I'm going to need you to come to court tomorrow. That wasn't the case. He hung up the phone and he called the local authorities and they came and got me. And I went to juvenile detention in Roxbury at the time. So that was my first experience with that.
How long were you there for?
It was just a couple months.
Okay, still.
So
that's like some trauma in itself. I mean,
it's funny you say that. Okay, sure. A lot of that stuff I think made me who I am. I don't know how much that affects me today.
Okay.
I know that it could and it can. But I don't know that it did.
I'm just saying, like, maybe, the way that our country deals with people with substance use disorder is to punish them and incarcerate them, which in my opinion actually makes the problem worse. So, it just makes me wonder, had maybe that experience progressed things for you? Did you meet people that derailed you, or, that's where you get your education on how to really use drugs? I mean,
it definitely didn't help me.
Right.
I don't know if they had any other option for me, though. I wasn't willing to listen. I wasn't willing to take any suggestions. I was just simply not ready yet.
Right.
At the same time, was I, committing any like serious crimes that were like, violent in nature? No. I was just a little, drug addict kid that needed some help. And those suggestions were there. Like, they made me go to a treatment center before.
Right.
I saw a therapist regularly. That was a disaster.
Right.
I mean, I just wasn't willing to do anything yet.
Right. So, I don't know. Tell us a little bit more. I know that you said you went to prison as an adult. Do you want to go into that at all?
Prison jail. I was shortly after, getting sober for my first time. Again, just doing it my way though, and kind of just running along. It's like, the donkey with the carrot. I got a job, and then I got a better job, and I would just keep running after that. And then time would pass. So like I'd look back and it's like, I haven't used drugs for a year. Great. But again, like no change inside. And
Right.
and so yes, I picked up again, and it was a drink as it normally was. Really hard, I think, for a lot of people who use cocaine or heroin. Drinking just seems to appear less less harmful to us.
Yeah.
If you look at my history,
Right.
it's almost always started and stopped with a drink for me.
Right.
And so that was the thing. It's still young, and that pervasive idea that I can get away with it just this once happened, and I picked up a drink, and it didn't take long, but shooting heroin and cocaine again, and things got really, really bad. I don't really even. It's hard to piece it all together. It really is. Certainly no place to live. Probably doing some couch surfing or, taking advantage of people, and so life didn't really seem worth living, but for the purpose of continuing to get high. And so we our habits are pretty expensive, aren't they? And so I did some things that I needed to get some money, and I ended up getting arrested, and I ended up incarcerated for 2.5 years.
Wow.
And it wasn't enough time to ruin my life, and it was just enough time to save it at the time. It was an experience. Human beings are unbelievably adaptable. You can go one of two ways while you're incarcerated. There are some things you can do.
So was that like a turning point for you?
It was for a while.
Yeah.
If it had been, if I had never picked up again, I'd have, almost 15 years. That isn't the case. I had about 5.5 years from the date that I went in to the date that, I picked up again.
So you were there for 2.5 years, and then you stayed sober for 3 years when you got out. So tell us about that 3 years. Were you running on self-will? Were you trying to work a program?
A program for me always looked like going to some sort of meetings, but like the job, the money, the car, the home, the girl, like all of that stuff equaled like sobriety to me. That's what I thought life was about.
Striving for.
That's what I thought I needed to be okay.
Right.
Little did I know, it didn't matter what I had. I was never going to be okay until I truly did something about the inside. So yeah, so 5.5 years in, I got all that stuff that I needed. Still not okay. I would go to sleep at night, the gears just grinding. Either like incredibly worried about something I had to do tomorrow, how am I going to get from point A to point B to point C, or not feeling quite right about something that maybe occurred that day or the day before.
Yeah.
And just so worried about what people thought of me. So worried.
Yeah.
Like that's one of my strong, defects of character, and we thought, I mentioned being a kid, being small. It was always about that. What do people think of me? So I just remember being that person, 5.5 years away from a drink or drug, but yet can't like fall asleep like calmly in the evening. I can't I can't just be. I was never present with anybody. I mean, relationships didn't work. I wasn't present for anybody. And so my girlfriend and I, all our friends were getting married. She probably wanted me to. I know that she wanted me to ask her, but I wasn't ready for that. So we're going to all these weddings, and I'm ordering a Red Bull and tonic, hating everybody around me that I can't do that. And at one of those weddings, it just came to my mind, you know what? Maybe I've grown out of that whole alcoholic thing. I think I've grown out of it. That was just a stage. And so I had 2 glasses of champagne. I told her I'm gonna have a glass of champagne, and she had never seen me drink. And she's like, "You sure that's okay?" I'm
You're
like,
like,
"Yeah,
I'm sure.
that's fine."
Right.
I never really told her the complete history of me.
Right.
Well, why would I want to do that?
Right.
I want to reserve my right maybe down the road.
Right.
And so I had 2 glasses of champagne, a couple Bombay and tonics, and it was perfect.
Yep.
And the worst thing that could have happened that night happened, which was nothing.
Right. Because it gave you permission to continue.
And so I woke up the next morning, unduly alarmed, as they say. And for the next several months, I tried to hold it together, drinking, to show everybody that I was okay. My family, my employer was particularly concerned about this. So we would go to lunch. I would have 2 beers, just fighting through it. Truly, I want to, the thought maybe if I go to the bathroom, maybe I can sneak a shot in at the bar. He won't see me.
Right.
Thinking about seeing my girlfriend after work and figuring out some sort of excuse why it's a good idea I pick up 2 bottles of wine. It's a time to celebrate or something.
Right.
So I held it together for 3 or 4 months, until I was, I basically gave her an excuse to end the relationship, and now I'm free. And now I can
use how I want to use.
Yes. So that was so that started another 4 years of debauchery and slowly but surely losing the things that I had put together in that period of abstinence. And it was particularly bad because when you're abstinent for that period of time, you gain a lot of trust back, you gain some respect. You're put in situations where you can really take advantage of people.
Right.
And I did. And by the end, I had nowhere to live. I got out of a detox, and I convinced this sober house that I was that I previously lived at in Lynn, Massachusetts. I convinced him that this was I needed some help. I don't have any money to get in. Things are going to be fine. And I remember he said to me, "John, you sure this is a good place for you to get sober?" Meanwhile, this is on the Commons in Lynn. I have a drug dealer that rides his bicycle around the Commons all day from 7 to 7. I said, "Yeah, Pat, it's a good idea." And so I go there, get high within a few days, and I lived there for about 6 weeks in just utter despair and demoralization. I wouldn't leave my bedroom during the day for fear someone would see me. I was sick. I didn't look good. And I would go out first thing in the morning before people were up. I would get my fix. I would pick cigarette butts off the ground. I would get back to my bedroom, lock the door. I would get high. I'd take the tobacco out of the cigarettes and roll it up, because I didn't have money for cigarettes at this point. And then I would wait till the nighttime to do that same thing again. And that day after day after day, pervasive thought in my mind, well, we're going to jump off the Tobin Bridge. Am I going to be successful? Because I think it'll be less painful if I jump into the water, but will it still work? And then thinking, maybe the Chelsea parking lots will be the better spot. So that's the thought that's going through my mind. And, you know, they say, but for the grace of God, it's, my mom had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer right around that time. Had it not been for that, suicide may have been a better, a more likely option. I couldn't do that to her.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that to her. So I ran to detox yet again, just to hide.
Yeah.
You know, I had a bunch of warrants out for my arrest anyway. I really had nothing going on, and somehow, so I'm in that detox and totally dishonest, unwilling. I'm taking my meds. I'm taking everybody else's meds. I'm, just doing my normal thing.
Yeah.
And this case manager who was working per diem just happened to come in. I asked to use her phone. Really, I just wanted to get someone to send me a Western Union. And she took the time to actually talk to me. Because, people in treatment, they just want to be heard.
Right.
They want you to listen to them, And she took the time to listen. And I must have talked to her for like an hour. And she had just met with a guy who had this little 12-step sober home up here in New Hampshire. And she had just connected with him a couple of days before that. And she said, this might be a really good place for you. And she got me on the phone with him. And he talked to me for like half an hour. And he took me in. And that was and that was the start of this present journey. And luckily, like my first year, I worked a little bit. Like I wasn't employable. I put my all. I put my all into recovery. Every day. I mean, I did everything I could, and I was privileged to be able to do that. Like I said, I worked a little bit, enough money to get by. I don't think I got my first pair of like new shoes until I was like, 9 months sober or something. Like my priorities had changed.
That's around when we ran into each other, right?
Correct. Probably right around then. Yeah. And that urgency didn't leave me right away. That desperation didn't leave me right away. And I really gave myself time to fix the inside and change my system of beliefs. And I'll be forever grateful for that. 12-step fellowships are pretty incredible. A lot of pathways to recovery. That's mine. That's what that's what I was given, and it works for me really, really well, just the way it's laid out. Taught me a lot about what humility is. That's a loaded word. It taught me a lot about that. What I give this to, I say this, I say this like every time I speak somewhere. What I came to the realization that this really made sense to me in the beginning. There's the movie Bruce Almighty. Do you know how? So Jim Carrey gets to play God, and he's getting all the prayers emailed to him, and finally, just like he's so fed up, and he says yes to everyone's prayers.
Yeah.
And the place goes to chaos.
Right.
And then so he's trying to fix it. He runs to God, Morgan Freeman, and he screams, "I just gave them what they want."
Right.
And God says to him, "Since when do they know what they want?"
Right.
I watched that movie like a month into sobriety.
Yeah.
And that hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Stop running. All those things that you used to chase, that you think you needed and wanted, slow down.
Right.
Slow down.
Right.
You're wasting the moment. You're wasting right now. And that was always the truth. I couldn't even make friends in the past because I was never in the present. How can you build friendships, romantic relationships, friendships, business relations when you're not present in the moment?
Right.
I was always 2 steps ahead. I learned a lot of really, really good lessons like that in the beginning,
So we're like out of time. Do you remember when I was really struggling and we were in the Hope Center, and you said to me, "You're going to be okay." Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
You do?
I do.
Yeah, I think that sums it up, right? We're both going to be okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there was a lot more I wanted to get into, but I got really captivated with your story. So thank you for being so open and honest.
Very
and
welcome.
Coming on and sharing. Is there anything that you want to say? I know that.
I mean, I would like to mention, I've had an opportunity to work in sober living and substance abuse treatment. If there is anybody looking for help that's listening.
So talk to that camera.
If there is anybody out there that is looking for help, please give. I work with Amatus Health in the Northeast, both Bonfire Behavioral Health and Blueprint Recovery Center. Our number is on the screen. It's 1-888-20-SOBER. No matter what your circumstances are, let us help you. We can absolutely give you some help and some direction.
So thank you so much for coming on.
Very welcome, Jesse.
All right.
Been quite a journey.
Yeah, it has. So thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you next time.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.